Welcome to this edition of Safe and Sound, sponsored by White Mountain Fire and Life Safety. I am your host, Kirk Webb, and today we have Director of Public Works, Matt Patterson, with the town of Pinetop Lakeside, and Ryan Hall, who is the Streets Director for the City of Show Low. Welcome to our show.
Well, it's nice to be here, Kirk.
Thank you. So, Matt, tell me a little bit about your job and what is it that you get to do?
Yeah, so I'm the Public Works Director, as you said, for the town of Pinetop Lakeside. And as the Public Works Director, we look at policies and procedures and what we're doing on operational level for the whole Public Works. And so one of the things that falls under our purview is snow plowing and the operations of that and getting prepared for that. So I spend a lot of time looking at the training that we do, what the routes we're going to be looking at for the year, and how we're going to go about handling the snow come the winter season. So that's a small overview of what we do basically with the snow as we're going to be talking about today.
And I know I used to, our family had the contract to work with town of Pinetop Lakeside doing snow removal back in the late 80s and 90s and stuff, and it's not so fun a job sometimes, and we're gonna discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot more to it than most people think that there is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Ryan, what's your job? What are you in charge of through the city?
During the snow, we split up into two shifts, a A shift and a B shift. I am the A shift supervisor, and so I'm out, directing the guys, making sure everything goes smooth. When we have trucks break down or, end up in the ditch.
You're the guy running around all over the place.
All over the place, yep.
So let me ask you this, and I'll get with both of you on this. How many miles of road do each of you cover? I think if I remember right, it was like 20-some miles. It's probably a little more than that now.
Well, we actually look at it at lane miles, and I'm assuming that the Show Low does the same thing. And we're sitting right about 120 lane miles right now that we maintain. And I'm not sure where you guys are.
We're like up in the 700s.
Yeah. So it's, and like I say, a lot of people don't realize, because they're always and you have procedures as far as at what point do you call the snow plows out?
Absolutely. There's, for us, we'll start at about 3 inches is when we'll actually put a plow down. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have staff in already waiting for the storm. Kind of like Show Low is, we have two shifts, so we have a shift that's midnight to midday and a midday to midnight, and if the storm's going to come in at 1 in the morning, they're already in at midnight preparing the trucks, getting them warmed up, and are ready for that storm. And I'm sure Show Low's kind of the same way.
Yeah, we have 4 levels, 0 to 2 inches. We have the big cinder trucks out doing the collector streets, and
you're probably looking at the main icy spots.
Yep.
Where we have our typical crashes,
right?
Because and putting the cinders down, I know that was my job, and I had all the hills So you're looking at all the troublesome spots right at the first, because there's no way, it's impossible. I don't think either one of you have enough equipment to get every street all at the same time.
No.
So you have to have those routes like you're talking about. And so what are some of the things the conflicts that you run into that?
Yeah, there's a lot of conflicts that we ended up running into, but I think at the end of the day, really what it comes down to is the pre-planning and the foresight ahead of time. You're absolutely right, Kurt, when you say you can't get to every road in town. So what we do is, before the storm ever happens, and actually years of planning go into making sure that we've picked the right routes for the fire department, the police department, the buses for school, and we focus on those routes first. We want to make sure that we can get people safely out to the places they need to go, to the hospital or to go grocery shopping. Sometimes you'll have a storm that lasts 4 or 5 days. So I think that it starts way before that, and in the pre-planning of what we're actually focused on. And when we start, we're focused on the main routes, and as it gets farther in, we look at the traction control, like you were saying, the cinders. That's an important piece to the puzzle, because not only do we got to get the public safely from their homes to the wherever they need to go, work, what have you. We need to do it safely as well. So if we just plow it off and there's ice, that doesn't do anybody any good, right? At the end of the day.
And not every street's going to get cinders.
Right.
Because I mean, that would take an awful lot of 700-mile lanes, and
120.
Yeah, exactly. That's a lot of cinders going out.
Absolutely.
So. And when you talk about the fire department, I know we use the same dispatch center now, and so that makes it simple and easy for us to have this. So if we're going out as the fire district, and we know that we're going into an area that may be troublesome, because we have a pretty good idea of our areas, which ones have the hills, which ones are going to have the ice, where the snow builds up the most typically, and that's not always the case, because there's times Show Low gets way more snow than Pine Top Lakeside, or typically it's vice versa. Pine Top Lakeside usually, because they're higher in elevation. And the other component is the county. I know the town of Pine Top Lakeside is very intertwined with county roads and Show Low, but
we have a few with the county,
and so you're not, and you're also working with the state highway department,
right?
Because they handle the main roads. It
complicates the whole situation. At the end of the day, we have intergovernmental agreements on the director's side. I have more of the intergovernmental agreements that we've worked out prior to, where the county will pick up this road and we'll pick up this road depending on where our routes lay out, and that's important to do ahead of time. I'm sure Show Low has it the exact same way, and you're right. It gets very complicated when you're talking about the areas, and you have to be very specific on where you're going to put cinders down. And like in your case for the fire department, there's hills and shaded areas that we need to cinder more than we do an open road that gets sun. And then we got, you have elevated curves and things like that we need to watch for a freeze back on.
Right.
And so there's a lot of thought process that goes into it ahead of time to make sure that those areas are cindered and ready for you guys or the bus or the public.
Right. And it's nice for one, because I know a lot of people don't realize and understand that we actually, as a fire department, have our own snow plows, because we're plowing off our driveways and accessibility, access roads, things like that. And so we know that if we get that really bad storm, we're probably sending a snow plow along with the truck and the rescue, but we can also call dispatch and say, hey, can you check with City of Show Low or Pine Top Lakeside or the county and have them send out an extra. Plus, our guys stay in shape and they can walk through that snow. They're not going to melt. I know. So I know because we do get that concern, and understandably so, that people in a medical emergency, especially, they want to know that they got help coming.
Right.
And they, I'm hoping that to give them a sense of relief that we have lots of working relationships that we're going to get to them. And as safely and a timely manner as possible. And I know you guys do the same thing, because if there's been many cases I've known of that we needed some extra more than what our snowplow could handle, and we call up dispatch and you guys are really readily and handily, right there, Johnny on the spot, ready to help us. And so it's been a great working relationship on that. So if you were talking to the public, because I can remember several times going up those hills with the loader or the cinder spreader or the blade, and the public, I think, might think that, oh, that thing's going to make it up to the hill. It's big and heavy, right? Have you ever lost it on a hill? I know I did.
That's scary.
And so the thing that scared me the most was somebody behind me.
Yeah.
And am I going to back over them because I can't make that hill because I lose traction or whatever the case? Because snowplows, they're not always. We've had, how many times have you gotten snowplows stuck?
Every storm.
Yeah. Right. It happens. So what would you tell the public?
Well, for me, one time I was in the six-wheeler and I was coming up Wolford Road, and somebody was coming out of the gas station there, and they didn't want to be behind the snowplow, so they tried to pull out in front of me. And as soon as they got on the road, they couldn't, they were just spinning out. And
it made it difficult for you to...
It made it difficult for me and everybody around.
Did you end up hitting them?
No.
Thank goodness.
No, we didn't hit them.
Because that's happened, you get those crashes and you could do everything you want, and the public, they try to rush.
Yep.
Right. I would say that my advice to the public was give us some room. Yep. Just we need a little bit more room, especially when it's snowing out. It's hard for us to stop. It's hard for us to see. And sometimes we don't notice the white car in the bank that's getting ready to pull out, and so it blends in. And our drivers you got to remember they're going to be out there all night long, and so there's that fatigue factor that goes in there too that we need to be aware of, and hopefully the public knows that.
Right. So those signs on the back of the vehicles.
Yeah.
What are yours say now? Because I think ours were 500 feet.
500
Stay back.
Feet. Stay back.
Stay back. 500
yeah.
feet. So it's still the same. Good.
Yeah.
And because honestly, 500 feet may not even be enough either.
Oh no.
Because especially depending on the hill.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we're looking at all those kinds of things, and now let's kind of cover a little bit, because are there areas and roads that you may not get to especially if you've got a really big storm, that's going to be a while before we even get to them, those dead end roads and things like that. Sometimes what if somebody gets stuck on those? What some recommendations?
Well, for us, we run into a big problem with people leaving their cars parked out on the street. So you got to make sure, because our policy, we don't plow those streets. So if 4 of your neighbors are parked out in the road, your street's not getting plowed, and it makes it super difficult to get those plows through there. Plus, get the snow, out of the road.
That's a good point, because I know there's several roads in town that are maximum, they're 22 foot wide?
Yeah.
So if you got cars parking on either side, you can barely even fit your snowplow safely through there.
Right. Our snowplows are 12 feet wide, so if you've got a 20-foot road and you got 8 foot of it taken up by a vehicle, there's not any room left for that plow to fit by.
Right, and that's why it's important. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and it's also important to when it's happening and it's snowing constantly, we're in there plowing one lane in and one lane out, and that's just for you guys, emergency vehicles. Once the snow is stopped, that's when we come back through and do all the widening. So and there's lots of things that happen. Plows break down, plows are stuck.
It's a rough, hard on equipment job.
It is.
It's unpredictable
and cold, and and I can remember when I was doing the cinders would freeze up in the back of the truck, so you're having to get out there freezing below zero sometimes, and it's not a fun job in some cases. And so when you get those occasional people that get a little bit grumpy, and because you just put a berm in front of their yard, their driveway.
Yeah.
What do you,
it's tough. To add something to what the parking issue, in Pine Top it's a little bit different than Show Low. In Pine Top we actually, we'll honk once. And then if they're there over 2 hours, we actually have them cited now. And we had to go to that because we had so much problems with people parking on the road thinking that before the storm they'd move their vehicle out in the road. Well, by doing that it caused so much more problems in the end. But to go to your next point on berms and what we deal with on the other side of it is you got to give us the time to get the snow off the road.
Right.
We have to get it to the side of the road. We need to get the mailboxes open, and we need to get it opened up all the way. But our first priority is to get through the storm and make sure that emergency response can get to your place. And
or if they have to go to an emergency, they're getting out themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then we'll come back, and after that first opening, like Ryan said here, we will then come back and widen it out all the way to the edge of the road. And it's important because not only does that open up the lanes for traffic, it also makes it safer. If you leave the snow on the road, it melts and then becomes an ice skating rink. And we don't want that. We want to be able to get the snow completely off the road and get it to melt down into the ditches like it's designed to do.
Right, and because that, like you say, when you get that ice buildup, now you cause multiple of other issues that's going to happen.
Right.
And if most people know, we offer the berm removal. So if you're elderly, disabled, I don't know if you guys do that, Matt. But if you're elderly, disabled, you get a doctor. You can get on our website at the City of Show Low and get it filled out by your doctor. And then once we're done widening and doing all that, we come back and we'll clean your berm in front of your driveway for you.
And I think maybe the county might be doing that. I know they used to. I don't know if they still do this year or not. But
I can't speak for them, but I vaguely remember something about that.
But even still, we all work together. We're all going to make sure if you got that medical emergency, we're going to do everything we can to get to that patient and be able to get you safely to the hospital. And so and not that. Yeah, it may take a few minutes longer because of the condition, because we don't want to get our people injured. We don't want to get you guys injured. So yeah, we're going to do it in the safest and most timely manner as possible. So, but we're still going to get there. And it's, like I said, it just might take a few minutes more, so just stay on the phone with the dispatcher. They're pleasant to talk to.
Yeah.
But what are some other winter safety tips? Let's say, because we actually have lots of roads further out that actually get closed off. The Forest Service shut them down, or state highway shuts them down. Like I know, like they're going to Big Lake, that road gets shut. There's other Forest Service roads that people go out on and they get stuck. What are some common safety things that maybe people should carry in their cars with them wintertime? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question, because I think at the end of the day, I think we forget to just wear good clothing. It never surprises me. We'll come on wrecks, or I'll have to come out to look at something that's going on, and we'll come across a car in the ditch, and they won't have any extra clothing. They'll be in a t-shirt and shorts, and it's a foot of snow out. And I think people forget how fortunate we are to have those vehicles and have the nice warm house. But there is that possibility of getting stuck and not being able to leave your vehicle, and you don't have fuel that's never ends, right?
Right.
And so I think that's a really important factor, is to make sure that you're properly dressed and ready for the snow. And I think another important factor is to stay with your vehicle if something like that happens. I think often to not we see people get out of their vehicle, and then that ends up being more of a wreck, or actually causing more safety issues for the people out there.
Or they even get wet. And start getting hypothermia, because I can remember a couple of times people driving off in a ditch in a road that is on one of the tail end of the route that I was on. And how long does it take before you get back to there? They could have sat in there for an hour or more.
Right, and we have ways of clearing cars. So up in Pine Top, I don't know what they do in Show Low, but our police department will come by and put a cone on top of the car to know that it's been cleared, so that we don't keep calling it in, and they've got those people off to wherever they need to be. And I think that's an important factor too. We're going to see you if you stay with your vehicle, and it could get, especially depending on what you're wearing and how bad of a snow is. If you start walking down the road, we might not be able to see you when we're coming with a snowplow.
Or you may think you're just walking and you're not going to see that they have an emergency of some sort.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So you train your drivers, your operators, to check on vehicles that are in a ditch.
Well, also publicly needs to know that we will not pull you out of the ditch.
Right.
We won't put ourselves liable. We'll make sure we are there and help you get somebody called, and we'll be there till somebody shows up. But we will not hook a chain up and pull the vehicle out.
Right. So they're responsible for getting themselves unstuck.
Right.
But you're going to do everything you can to make sure that they stay warm, or whatever the case might be, so they stay safe.
Yeah, and I think a good point that you were bringing up earlier is that we do communicate back and forth to each other. We have radios inside of our trucks. We're communicating amongst ourselves, but we also have that supervisor that's communicating with dispatch.
Right.
So at any time when we're getting those calls in, our guys are just radioing back to the supervisor. We've got a connection right into dispatch, and that's important to know for them, that we are communicating all the way down to the police and fire department level, and making sure that everybody's on the same page.
And I think because we have switched over to that common dispatch center, it makes it so much easier and nicer for that intercommunication, because we use different radio frequencies.
Right.
So you guys are on one, and so we have our own communication channel, but we have that common dispatch, which makes it so much nicer to be able to talk and especially in that emergency situation, we got somebody off in the road or even a house fire. I know there's been times that you guys have called in house fires or other things like that because the people couldn't call 911 or whatever the case. Phone lines go down in the wintertime. So,
and that's another one that we see quite often is actually power lines coming down, and that's a really dangerous situation with snow plowing, and we've had that happen several times.
Right. So we got a few minutes left. What kind of projects with roads, because that's another subject that even without wintertime, and do you have some major projects you guys are all working on that are going to look at doing some major improvements in the future?
Well, the most notable one here in town is the streetscape there in front of KFC there on Hall Street. They're working on that. And over on Cooley and 4th, we got the new water line in and got that paved. So
I know they've been doing a lot of sidewalk improvements and things like that, which has been, all of that goes in to help lessen that impact when we do have those storms, whether it's snow or rain or whatever the case. I know you guys.
Yeah, we just finished the bridge on Porter Mountain Road. That was a safety issue for the children going to school there, but even the public, they use it. So we're excited to have that new feature to our town, and that was a big project for the town of Pinetop Lakeside.
And it looks really great too.
It did turn out nice.
It sticks out, but it looks nice.
Yeah, it does.
And like you said, huge safety factor, because there were kids and adults and everybody walking across that bridge all hours of the day, night. And
the bridge is not wide enough for that. There's not enough room for vehicular traffic, and
it's barely wide enough for
pedestrians.
Two-way traffic, right?
You get two semis on there, and it's a little interesting.
Yeah.
So that was a good project for us, and we've been working on drainage issues since the flood that we had last year. We've still been working on trying to clean that up. So that's been a big portion of our time spent.
And I think they've kind of gotten some work going with those federal funds coming out where the money's going back to where it should be going, and which helps huge in the projects you guys are all working on.
Right. If we could get the money back, the funds back down to the local rural level, it really helps us out. And so.
Because I remember when I was cleaning ditches and filling potholes, and and people were always wondering, why are you doing it this street? Why are you doing that street? And how come you don't do my street? Type of deal. I see them in the store, and it's like, you know what? We look at where those danger areas are, where the flooding has the problem, and
it's public safety. It's right back to the public safety. We focus on public safety first, and then convenience second. Right. We wish we could have every road in town paved brand new. Yeah, that would be all of our dreams. I'm sure Ryan would love that in the streets department, but it's just not possible. So we focus on the safety issues.
Well, and it looks to me like both, even the county, town of Pinetop Lakeside, the county and city of Show Low, you've gotten a lot of new equipment, which helps you do your job more efficiently.
Absolutely.
Getting those pothole. You have more equipment than when I was doing the stuff that to be able to more effectively take care of those potholes, and so the roads are in a lot better shape, and people, I think they don't realize that, and I think they take for granted the work that you guys are doing, and I think as a whole, I, for one, because I've been on that other side, and I understand the intricacies and the difficulties and having to try to justify which road gets what, and because you got X amount of money to work with, and so much time to be able to get it done in too. So
and you bring up a great point there with every year people don't realize we have a short window up here on the White Mountains. We've been fortunate or not fortunate, I don't know how you want to look at it. This year the weather has been good longer into October and November. We've been able to work a little bit longer. But typically for us, we have a short window to do work, and I'm sure City of Show Low is the same way. We're not able to work year round. Right.
And typically in November it's not warm like it has been this last year, and which creates another problem for us as fire, because now come springtime, now we're going to have more of a greater of a fire threat if we don't get some more snow.
Right.
So I think people need to stop and take a moment to look at, snow is a problem, but yet we really do need the snow for the future of keeping the mountains safe from burning in the summertime. So it's a very complicated mix of how do we keep everybody happy.
Absolutely.
And I mean, have you found that you can keep everybody happy?
No.
You know, and it's, you know, and it gets, you know, because what do you do to I mean, you get that grumpy person that comes up and just starts, I mean, I've had rocks thrown at me, and you know, and the only thing you can do is just say, you know what, I'm trying. And you know, and you don't want to get angry at them.
No.
Because we don't know. You don't know their perspective.
Right.
But
yeah, I think the most important thing is to remember that we all live here and we all are working on the same thing. And I know I can speak for my guys, and I'm sure Shoalo guys the same way. They love the town. They love the city of Shoalo. They're there because they want to help progress the town, and they're doing the best they can to make that happen. And it's important to remember that they care about it, and they're part of the community. They're the same guys out teaching your kids to play t-ball, or you know, out helping with the football team. Those are the guys that are in public works, and they're important to the community as a whole.
Well, I want you guys to know that I appreciate the work that you guys do, and your guys too. And I think hopefully this show has brought about a little bit of awareness to the public that, you know, you guys are out there for the safety of us, yourselves, and the community. And so do your part to help out. Park off the street. So once again, Ryan Hall, Streets Director from the City of Shoalo, thanks for joining us. Matt Patterson, Director of Public Works at Town of Pinetop Lakeside.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure talking with you, and I hope you go back to your crews and let them know that we appreciate you guys, and especially us as fire, we support each other. And I'm hope you guys do a great job. You should commend yourselves.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Safe and Sound. I'm Kirk Webb, your host. Join us again next month for another edition.